Good evening. It's good to be with you all. My name is Miguel. I am a lead pastor at Hampton Roads Fellowship. We are a 6-year-old church. I don't think I can say church plant anymore, right? After 5 years, we're done. Okay. We're a 6-year-old church plant. See, I just did it right there. I've been in ministry 6 years, pastoral ministry for 6 years, and this topic of faith works, honestly, has never been more real to me than it is this season. And I think one of the reasons is because the longer that you're a Christian, and I'm also seeing the longer that you're in ministry, you can become a little discouraged, if you will, and you can kind of grow cynical. And the truth is because you don't see as much works as you thought you would, and so you're tempted to believe that maybe that's just not the way that it's just going to happen, or the way it works. And I think what happened recently for us, I think it's one of the reasons why I was asked to be here, was I was encouraged not by so much my faith or even our church's faith recently, but by another church's faith that allowed God to use that to work in our church's life. And so what I thought could be helpful was really not to talk about how sort of my faith or even our church's faith kind of led to some good work here, but rather how a church that has existed for 120 years and how their faith is actually what allowed us to be able to benefit from their work as well. So I just wanted to just read actually from James chapter 2. I'm sure this is what comes from the title of the night tonight is just Faith Works. Verse 14, we'll go down to 18. What good is it, brothers, if someone says that he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. But someone will say, "You have faith, and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works." And we're familiar with this text, and it's actually a controversial text, and it's gotten a lot of confusion because a lot of people will say, "See, you are saved not just by faith. You're saved also by your works." Isn't that what James says? You're not just saved by faith, you're saved by your works. No, that's not actually what James is saying. What James is saying is that you are saved by faith, but a faith that actually produces work. It's not your works that save you. There's only one's work that saves you, and it's Jesus' work. It's his work that saves you. And it's your faith in him that saves you. But Jesus did not just save you just so that you can be saved. He saved you so that now your faith can produce good works for the purpose of saving other people. Amen. And we, as good Protestants, believe that we are saved by faith alone, but not by a faith that is alone, but by a faith that actually produces good works. And I think, in this sort of recent, maybe 20 years of wanting to recover the gospel and the clarity of the gospel, which is so needed, I think we might be losing the other aspect of what does the gospel actually produce. It actually produces work. We don't just gather in our churches to just preach the gospel and to hear the gospel and to unpack the gospel and to study the gospel. Yes, we do all those things, but it's because the gospel is meant to produce something in you that will actually produce good works so that the world can see. Jesus says that you are the light of the world, so let your light shine before men so that it may glorify your Father who is in heaven. And family, I don't know if this is where you, but it's just hard to believe that that's going to be true of us. That God is going to actually use our faith in order to produce good works that will actually bless other people. And I think, we were in a season over the last 5 years where we saw tremendous blessing, but also a lot of suffering in our church. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but the suffering takes a lot longer to recover from than the blessing sort of seems to endure. And as we were growing and we were so grateful to have been at Parkview. I joke with Rusty, it's like good grandkids. We told them we were leaving, and then we had to say, actually, we're not leaving right now. We're actually going to stay a little longer because we weren't able to leave when we thought we were. But I think we came in a season where it was honestly true that, Lord, what are you doing with us next? Because we planted this church. We've seen people come to faith. We've seen marriages restored. We see people grow in Christ. And at some point you just say, what is this all for? Like, what is this all about? And, we just realized, man, what is going to be this next season for us? And what I was not expecting was that answer to come through the faithfulness of another church. I think one of the things that I was humbled by this season was you can get so much tunnel vision and you just become kind of consumed only what God is doing within your own local church. And I just want to say, family, if you do that, that's going to be really discouraging. Because we have the sort of just a limited perception of what God is doing if we're only looking at what he's doing in our local church. And so by God's grace, and I have Rusty to thank for this, he connected me with the pastor at Calvary Baptist earlier this year. And we sat down and we just had some conversations, more the what if. What if God would be pleased to do this? What if God would be pleased to allow the legacy of a 120-year-old church to allow what those saints wanted to see occur and continue to occur on the corner of Huntington and 47th? What if we prayed that God would continue to allow that to happen just with a different church? What if God would actually be pleased to do that? In fact, I will tell you, even though as a church planter and I'm a pastor, I do not like risk. I like to play it safe. When Melanie was talking about fear, I am more fearful than I am full of faith. I tend to look at things and I can see all the things that are wrong and why we should not do that. I do not say, that's a great idea, let's go for it. But I think the Lord was growing me in the fact of saying, Miguel, it's not you doing this. It's not you doing this. You didn't plant this church. You didn't create these people. You did not do this work. So why all of a sudden now are you fearful as if you can't do something? You can't do anything. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And God really stirred just my, just sort of affections for him and the fact that, I really think I was in a season of just really relying too much on myself. And really just sort of running dry of like, Lord, I can't do this anymore. I'm sort of out of tricks. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to get people excited about. And family, I just want to make it clear, it's not the building that was the gift. What was the gift was the faithfulness of the saints of Calvary Baptist Church and the legacy that they allowed us to be a part of. That was the gift. We had a joint service back in August 4th, and Calvary and our church came together and we worshiped together, and it was just a sweet time of just seeing the fact that we exist as churches not for ourselves, just as our brother just recently said, but we exist for the next people that come here to continue the faithfulness of what God is doing. And I told the saints at Calvary during that service is, the greatest gift that you gave us is to be part of the story of what God has done here for 120 years. That allows us, the 6-year-old church, to now be joined together with a church of 120 years of its legacy. And I don't know about you, but that gets me really excited. One of the things that I love most about the church is the fact that it didn't start with us. That the church has been going for 2,000 years and will continue to go until Jesus comes back. And the 6 years that we've experienced as a church, it's been great, but I'm so looking forward for the many, many thousands of years that we will see the church in its fullest form. But in the meantime, the Lord gives us these glimpses where he reminds us this is not about us. It's not about your work. It's about his work. But he actually uses your faith as a means to bring about his works. But I was never, ever expecting that it would be the faith of another church that would actually allow us to produce good works. It was amazing to me for the compassion, the humility, the generosity of the saints of Calvary Baptist. But what most encouraged me was their faith. Because it wasn't just saying that we are believing in God and trusting God, but it was actually saying, and we so believe in trusting God that he is calling us to act and to do something about what God has given us here. And family, that was just what was most encouraging to me, was the fact that that was making visible a faith that actually works. And that's going to be a gift for us. We're actually planning on moving maybe for the next few weeks, Lord willing. I don't know how many times I can tell Rusty, not yet. But there's going to be an opportunity for us now to be in a home where our church family can grow and where we can enjoy the labors and the works of saints for the last 120 years. And it's just a reminder that this is not about us. I pray, I told our church this, I pray that when the time comes that the Lord calls us to move on to whatever it is he's called us to, that we would have the same type of faith, to trust him with what we are to do with the works of what he's given us. I pray that Calvary's model for us would actually create a culture of that in our own church, where we would not be afraid, that we would hold everything loosely and open-handed, because the goal is not to hold on to things as long as we can. The goal is to give them away for as much as we can so that God can continue to do what God does. And so as I thought about this topic of faith works, I was honestly just convicted that, you know what, I actually want to see more of my faith actually produce those good works. And I've been encouraged by how I've seen faith of other people and how their works has blessed me. So I thought just tonight, just a reminder of this one thing I can just have you take away from, is that your faith doesn't just produce good works for you. Your faith actually produces good works for other people. That's what the goal of the good works are. And those works will bless people beyond measure. 120 years, I can't imagine how many Christians came and went from Calvary Baptist. They will never know any members of our church. But their faith actually allows us to now be able to carry on the good works that God has called us to. So I pray that encourages you this evening. That what you are doing in whatever calling or vocation the Lord has called you to, it's not for you ultimately. It's for him and the people that he is calling to benefit from your work in that. You may never see it. You may never see the good work that the Lord is using your faith for. But he's using it. And the goal is not for us to see it. The goal is to trust him that he will use it. This past Sunday, we always end our service with a benediction. And our benediction came from Ephesians 3, verses 20 to 21. Let me read that and then I'll close with this just as far as how it encouraged me. Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power at work within us." Honestly, my expectations were way too low for what God could do if we would just exercise our faith. That God can do far more abundantly because the power does not rest within us, it rests in him. But he puts his power at work in us. It's his power that's at work. And he will do far more abundantly than you could ever imagine. And we have all that we need to see that happen. And that starts with sort of a refreshed understanding of what faith is. Faith is not just believing things to be true. That's part of it. The other part of it is us actually responding to that and actually doing something about that. So as James says, you say you have faith, but if you have works, what good is the faith? We believe that regarding salvation. If you say, oh, I believe in it, there's a God, but it doesn't actually cause me to put my trust and faith into him, then what kind of faith is going to actually save you? But that's also true throughout the entire Christian life. If we say we trust God, but we actually don't act on that trust, then what good is that trust? So family, tonight I just want to encourage us to just see when we talk about faith and works, realize it may not be your faith and your works that you're most benefited by. It may actually be the faith and works of another. And that actually is encouraging because God is using our faith to produce good works for the sake of his church. And that is